This is going to be a really quick episode of The Tech because we got things to do, but in this case, we've got to take control of an interplanetary space probe. So that's actually what we're going to do after this episode of The Tech. At least get the equipment ready.
The worst part is you're not even joking.
Yeah, I'm not even joking.
You've got to run so you can get the equipment ready to take over the universe. You're going to try to take over the probe, that is? The interplanetary space probe from the 70s that was just floating around?
Yeah, so this is the Call for Hams and Hackers, the IC-3 Home. There's a space probe that was launched on August 12th, 1978, and we thought we shut it down. We didn't shut it down. NASA decommissioned the radio facility, so they don't have a way to contact it. But they're calling on amateur radio operators and hackers to see if they can maybe contact the space probe and download its data. So it's totally an episode of Star Trek, but in real life.
So anyway, it's going to be a shorter episode of The Tech. Plus, I've got a ton of other things going on. This has been a crazy week. We got PAX coming up next week, so it's going to be a crazy next couple of months, as a matter of fact, because as soon as we're done with this, we got to go to Computex. Anyway, I want to send out a warning to all of our members out there who also are members of Chase Bank and also play around with Bitcoin. Someone this is on our Bitcoin here on Reddit. Someone said that their account was closed, no warning or anything like that. They just went in and they went into the local branch, and the only clue they got was someone there told them that this looks like it is probably related to their quote unquote Bitcoin activity. Historically, Chase has been very anti-Bitcoin. They've been going after different merchants who use Bitcoin or accept Bitcoin as payment. They have been shutting people down who transfer money from Chase into an online Bitcoin service or something like that. So
like Coinbase, apparently.
Yeah, like Coinbase. And you know what's really funny, Wendell? I just sent some money over to Coinbase. I bought some Bitcoins on Coinbase using my Chase account. Oh, God.
Whoops.
Why is this happening?
That's sort of an oops.
Yeah. So, someone here from the National Bitcoin CEO thing, I don't know, someone responded here saying that Chase is putting some things into place and they're going to start playing nice with Bitcoin. And I'm thinking maybe Chase will be a little bit nicer with Bitcoin now that the IRS is looking at Bitcoins as property. But I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen with all this. Just if you have Chase, be very careful. And also, if you have Chase and you're playing with Bitcoins, make sure that is not your primary account. And also, make sure you're diversifying your accounts. Have an account with somebody else as well. If you really want to play with Bitcoins, go get a credit union. Most states have credit unions. They're usually better than banks as far as interest rates and everything like that goes anyway, but just go get yourself a credit union and use that as your Bitcoin bank account. All right, moving right along, and let's get down to business with other things that are going on in the world. Google, they're testing out a few new features from Gmail. They got some cool things rolling out. Wendell, I'm kind of looking forward to some of the features that keep key messages at the top of your inbox. You can now pin messages to the top of your inbox, sort of like making a thing, something sticky in a forum. That's going to be really handy because I get a gazillion emails, and a lot of times people will email me like 2 weeks later and be like, dude, why didn't you get back to me? And I'm like, oh, because you're on page 3 and I totally forgot, I'm sorry. But now I can pin things to the top. The other thing that's really cool here is there's going to be a snooze feature. And that's going to be exactly like what it sounds like. You can tell a message to snooze, and then after it gets down the list a little bit, it will pop back up to the top, just like snoozing your whatever that thing is, alarm clock. Does anyone use an alarm clock anymore? I don't use one. No, just a phone. Everyone's using their phone now.
Pretty much. I mean, a phone with a dock, and you don't even. That's literally the only technology you need. I use my phone. I wake up better with light instead of sound, and I have my phone and my tablet configured on the nightstand to do that, and so I don't even wake up with an alarm. It's just light.
Let's do a follow-up on the Oculus Rift stuff from last week. Now, last week, John Carmack had not really said much of anything, and since then, he's come out and said something of something. Yeah, a little bit of something, maybe that's what I should say. Anyway, he doesn't seem to be too afraid of Facebook, and you guys can read the full article here, but he thinks that Facebook gets the big picture, and it's the big picture as he sees it. That's the main important thing, because John Carmack is someone who I can't see him compromising, because he did leave id because he didn't like the direction they were going, and he didn't feel like they were going in. I guess he didn't feel like they were pursuing the world as he sees it. But now he thinks that Facebook gets it and they get the big picture as he sees it. I don't know. Do you make anything of this?
I was really surprised by this. I mean, I can't imagine Facebook is a big picture, we get it kind of company. I mean, look at Instagram, look at Zynga, look at all that kind of stuff. Who are you and what have you done with John Carmack?
Well, over at Robert Space Industries, there's a new blog, and it's from the chairman, of course, from Chris Roberts. And, he says that he is not someone who's upset about the Oculus Rift, quote unquote, selling out. It says right here, I am not one of them. And if you guys read the entire thing, the main thing that he's saying is that in order to produce something like an Oculus Rift and get it out there, you're going to have to spend millions of dollars developing, building, putting things together, getting factories, fitted to make these different parts and that sort of thing. And, the Oculus probably doesn't have hundreds of millions of dollars laying around. Facebook has deep enough pockets to build the thing and do it right. The thing that worries me the most is the intentions of Facebook, not necessarily, the fact that they have a ton of money to bring to the table and the fact that they could make something like this a reality. I'm more worried about their intentions, but, he's really pointing out here that in order to make something like this a reality, you're going to need extremely deep pockets from a company like Facebook. I think the worst thing is that it was picked up by Facebook and not a company like Valve or something. So
he talks a little bit about that because it's like Valve keeps coming up and he says, oh well, Valve it was doing their thing on a relatively clean playing field, and the difference with this is that when we release the product, it's not going to be a clean playing field, and so he thinks that Valve doesn't have a strength there because they're not by themselves, which I thought was really an interesting perspective.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's also interesting that I'm going to reiterate my point from last week. The Oculus Rift is not the only VR headset in the world. It's not going to be the last. There's going to be more that come out. So it's going to have competition, and there's going to be more interest in it. Maybe it's going to drive interest up, and maybe there'll be other large companies that are willing to invest tons of money. Microsoft has their own thing coming, going, and we'll talk about that in the hardware segment. So you guys can stay tuned for that one. Anyway, that's pretty much all we've got to talk about as far as Oculus Rift goes. Now I want to talk about a couple of things that are going on the internet. Time for our little internet segment. Now in New York, there's tons of hackerspaces. I've been to a few different hackerspaces in New York, just peeking in and being like, "Hey guys, what's up?" I have not been to this one. There's one in Soho, and actually not in Soho. It's in the Lower East Side, called X Cubicle. That's a clever name, you guys. Now, X Cubicle, what they want to do is they want to create a mesh net in New York so that they are not reliant upon the ISPs that be. Now, in order to do this, what they'll have to do is they'll have to get a lot of people who want to jump on and be a part of the mesh net. Now, if you don't know what the mesh net is, it's basically everyone's connection becomes a connection point. Well, it's up and down. So you're sharing your connection with as many other people as want to connect, and then they can share their connection, and then you just have a big mesh net. There you go. Now, what's interesting about this is they've got this initiative going, and there is not a mesh net right now. There's their 22-year-old leader there in the picture. Right now, it's just an idea. And I think the main goal here is not really to create a mesh net at this point. There's not going to be enough people adopting. I mean, they're going to try to be putting up some, ubiquity high-powered access points. I wonder how similar those are going to be to the ones that you're using there.
I don't know. It's going to be interesting.
The thing that I'm wondering is what kind of resistance. I mean, let's suppose they got enough people in enough areas of New York to sort of create a network that's not reliant upon the ISPs. My two questions are, someone somewhere has to connect to the outside internet. I mean, how are they going to be connected? Is it going to be like a business connection that's shared across all these connections? Because they have to have outside lines, and right now those are all provided by major companies like Verizon and Comcast and, Tier 1 and Cogent, and just they've got to be able to connect to the backbone of the internet somewhere. It can't just be unless we're talking like a global mesh net, but this is just New York City. And then if stuff like this does pick up, the other two, questions and concerns, private individuals would have the potential to charge people for access to their network, and let's say they've got a pretty fast connection and they've got a pretty fast router and they've got a few people and they're sharing with people in their building. They would potentially be able to charge like $5 or $6 for everybody in the building and then start making a little profit on this. That could be weird, And
I think they're going to end up, like, this thing's going to evolve. And I
Yeah.
think at first, I don't think they know what they're doing, and I think that that might be the death knell because I don't think there are enough people interested to make it a private network that makes sense without the internet because I don't know what it would be. But if they can get themselves organized and if they can put it together and pull it off from a technical standpoint, then they might have a large enough group of people that they could negotiate with a larger provider. And a larger provider may be interested in that. Because in New York City, when you're talking about bandwidth like a gigabit, 5 gigabit, 10 gigabit, whatever, you're talking about thousands of dollars a month in access fees. And so you've got a lot of providers that are willing to provide you service at that level in New York. And so if they've got enough people in their little co-op, and it actually turns into a co-op, then maybe they're onto something. But it's almost like a municipal, or a private run co-op, municipally plugged in, but not really a part of the municipal government type situation.
Yeah, really, the closing statement here is that the best case scenarios is that they can show that it works, and they even anticipate that it may get taken down by a corporation or something like that. But getting someone else, like you just said, involved would be a very interesting turn of events for the whole thing. Speaking of a very interesting turn of events, we talked a lot about how to bypass censorship, and we always recommend our VPN, and that's doing really well. And a lot of you guys have said that it's doing really well. But in Russia, there's a group of hackers, and they've decided that the best defense is a really good offense. So what they've done is, right now in Russia, there's some services in place to block websites that are anti-government or just websites that have material that they disagree with. So of course they have internet censorship going on over there. And so what some of the hackers are doing over there is they're actually, this is more complicated than just a few sentences, but essentially when they blacklisted a website, they're blacklisting that website at an IP level. Then if that website decides to redirect itself, they try to block whatever it's redirecting itself to. So what they were doing is they're redirecting themselves to legitimate websites, sometimes pro-government websites, and then accidentally those pro-government websites that the blacklisted websites are redirecting themselves to get blacklisted, and then they have to go in and say, hey, we were blacklisting one of our good sites. What's going on here? And it becomes a mess.
So it's to maybe hopefully restate it a little more clearly.
Yeah, that was convoluted as hell.
So imagine you've got a site that you want to block on the internet. You can do it two ways. You do it DNS, so that Facebook.com, you can't get to anything called Facebook.com. But then like Facebook.co.uk, you'd have to block that one, and not real good. And then the other way is IP address. And so Russia has found that the DNS blocks, like are in the UK, don't really work because you can just change your DNS servers. The Twitter thing that happened in Turkey. So it's like we want to block the IPs as well. So what happens when you do that is whoever controls the domain name that's been blocked, when somebody from Russia asks, hey, what's your IP address? They give them the IP address of Facebook or the IP address of a pro-government website or some other IP address. And then the automatic blocking software is like, cool, I'll block that IP address. And then all of a sudden people can't get to Facebook or, go Putin, whatever.com.
GoPutin.com.
So, Putin's familyvacationpics.com is... And so then it's blocked that way. So it's sort of fun to sit back and sort of watch what's happening there, because then that IP address was like, oh, we need to whitelist that. And when they whitelist it, then it turns into a big mess. So it's really, right now, the structure of the internet is really resilient to this sort of shenanigans. But if entities keep chipping away at it, eventually it's not going to be as resilient as it is today.
One other thing that's interesting that they're trying to do is, besides just confusing the redirect functionality and confusing the blocking mechanisms, they're also trying to create copies of sites that have been blocked. And then they're giving you guys a Google Chrome extension so that if one of your websites has been blocked and you try to go to that, the Google Chrome extension knows that and it reroutes you to a mirror of that website elsewhere. So they're doing a lot of different things, and it's kind of become a game of cat and mouse, and it's just fun to watch the havoc that goes on. But this is what happens when you try to censor the internet. It was not born censored, and it'll probably die before it goes full censored. I don't know. It
is very rare, if ever, that pure information by itself can be harmful. I mean, the information, it's not completely true. There are no unequivocal statements, but It's information, and information is not what it is, it's what you do with it.
Well, the government certainly thinks that information can be harmful, and that's why they started their own version of Twitter just to stir up crap in Cuba. Now, this is not Twitter. It's what they wanted to do is they wanted to create a service like Twitter for Cuba, and they wanted to make sure that the government was not attached to it. They got investors and everything. This is ridiculous. The idea was to get a whole bunch of people following this, and then after, you get maybe 100,000 people following it, then you start trying to get those people to organize rallies and protest and start trouble against the powers that be. And this was funded by the freaking government, the U.S. government.
Yeah, this is a little crazy. I mean, if they're doing this, imagine what other things they're doing. I mean, this is crazy. Why?
Yeah, I mean, the only reason we know about this is because this came to light. So, I mean, there's probably, there's probably a...
Twitter's a great idea. Let's found an anti-communist Twitter that's designed to, seed uprising in Cuba. What?
I always thought that Facebook might be a government program. now I'm starting to think.
NSA renews Project Facebook. There's an Onion article about that.
Yeah, that was that article is probably the truest article they've ever written. Speaking of more scams, if you guys ever been at home and then getting one of those virus pop-ups where it's like a bootloader or some crap that takes over your web browser, or just a pop-up that comes up on your screen and is always like, hey, your computer's messed up and you got to click here to pay us some money. Well, this guy, Mohammed Jamil, whatever his name is, from London, he decided to take it a step further, and he hired a team of Indians to call people and tell them that, hey, we're going to fix your computer. Anyway, this team would call people and convince them to give them access to their machines. So they would, get remote access to the machines, log on, create some security vulnerabilities, and then say, hey, give us some money and we'll fix the problems that we just created, and people would pay for it.
So he would call people, he'd call little old ladies and be like, I'm from Microsoft. Your stuff's broke. Can I take over your computer over the internet? That's going to be £70, please.
Yep, and they would pay for it. Anyway, he got caught, thankfully, and he's going to be doing a little bit of jail time and paying a little bit of a fine. But if you ask me, the jail sentence it's only a 4-month jail sentence. Yeah, that's not very much for this kind of thing. We need to, I don't know, something like this, in my opinion, needs to scare other hackers from doing this sort of thing, because it's just purely taking advantage of people. It's terrible. It makes me sad. I don't know. I talked to a guy this week, Wendell, who fell for this and paid $350.
Oh my God!
Yeah, just someone I was talking to. They were like, "Yeah, I guess I just didn't know what I was doing, and I didn't have time, and I just paid the money, and it went away." But then I was talking to my friend, my nephew or whatever, and he was like, "You did what?" Yeah.
Yeah. This is how we have things like Crypto Locker. They need to stop it.
Microsoft is bringing back the start menu, but really this time, they're really bringing back the start menu.
And that's 3 days away.
Well, the 3 days away, they're doing a major update to Windows, but I don't think the start menu is going to be 3 days away, unless I'm mistaken. I think the start menu is another week or two off, maybe?
That's probably true, but I had read that on the day that Windows XP is retired, they're also pushing out a Windows update that brings the real start menu like we're used to back. Although the right-hand side of the start menu is still the start live tiles nonsense, but the left-hand side is the start menu that we're used to.
I'm not sure if I have problems with this at all, because I kind of like having the weather right there when I pop it up, because I 2 or 3 times a day I'll sit down and I'll go to Weather Underground or weather.com or AccuWeather or something, one of those services. I'll go to that in my browsers. I don't think I'll mind pressing the start button and seeing some of those things and seeing some stock tickers and that sort of thing. I imagine you can customize it just like you would your start page in Windows 8. So I don't think I have too much of a problem with this. The other thing that I really like about this is the fact that they are now going to allow you to open up modern apps inside standard Windows on your desktop. So you can move them around. I mean, it's pretty much like a desktop operating system all over again.
So when I screw up on the start menu and it brings up that hideous full screen, search results thing, I don't have to spaz out and drag it down and do all that sort of nonsense.
Yeah, try to figure out, oh God, what have I done? Yeah.
I was really happy that in one of the recent Windows updates, they added Alt F4 to be a thing to close the modern apps, because used to I would hit Alt F4 and the modern apps would just stare and laugh at me, and then now I can hit Alt F4 and the modern apps close.
They're sitting there laughing, going, "I'm not sure what you're trying to tell me." Like,
Alt
what do you want
F4,
me to
I don't
do?
know what that is. Go away.
But if you can find that one pixel right at the top of the screen, you can grab that and then drag it all the way down and then drop it. It's so easy. It's much easier than pressing Alt F4, right?
Clearly, no one in Microsoft product testing has the double monitor, one on top of the other. You know, once you go stacked monitors, you never go back. But you know, with the one pixel thing, it's sort of a pain.
Yeah, I was talking to somebody and they were like, "It's really easy. You just slam your cursor into the top of the screen and then just drag it down." But your scenario right there with those two monitors has got to be like, you've got to find the exact pixel, right? It's like one pixel, right?
Yes, it is 1 pixel tall and it's as wide as the monitor. But I really like the stacked configuration.
1 pixel on a 4K display. Imagine that. Imagine the cursing. Yeah. Windows, they're also going free on phones, small tablets, and quote unquote the Internet of Things. But this is funny. It's going to be free for phones and tablets up to 9 inches big. 10-inch tablets are right out. You're going to have to pay for it. It's pretty much a computer once it's 10 inches. That's kind of strange.
It is sort of strange. I would say 10 inches and smaller, not 9, but because you could have the 10-inch tablet competitor that's for. Well, I guess, I don't know. I mean, because the iPad is 10 inches, but the screen, I guess, is a little less than 9. So maybe there's something to that. Maybe that's okay. Although Chromebooks, you know, this doesn't really help with Chromebooks, maybe, which is somewhere that I think Microsoft should be scared to death. So
yeah, it's sort of a niche that they don't have an answer for. Interesting. But maybe it's going to get them out there a little bit more, because right now they're competing with free operating systems like Linux and Android, and, well, Android is Linux. Yeah, moving right along. This is a very interesting article here on Time. Jonathan Ive. Jonathan Ive, a lot of you guys think Steve Jobs created all the crazy, elegant devices that you carry around and all the really intuitive interfaces. Most of that was actually Ive. He's a British guy, and he's been behind the scenes for about 20 years now. He's very shy, doesn't do a lot of interviews, but most of the clean industrial design that was probably inspired by several different German companies was ripped off by Ive. And this is actually a really interesting article. Is there anything in particular you wanted to I don't know, point out in the article? I was just going to tell people if they're curious, they can check it out.
No, I would say that Jonathan Ive is a very talented individual that works for Apple. And the Time article, I thought, was a really, really well-balanced sort of overview backgrounder. And so it's definitely an interesting article, and you guys should take a look at it. And pretty much everything is covered there. And it talks about the Apple design process and some things like that. And that's the part that I found most interesting, because part of his process is that he decides where there's some sort of design injustice and is like, how can I make that better? And sort of works backward from it. And that's sort of the opposite of what I expected, because a lot of Apple designs, it seems like, let's cram a computer in a cube, or let's make a shiny aluminum flat thing and then figure out what it does later.
You know, one of the most interesting things that I saw in the article was that he does that exact thing you just said, but he also works with materials that are not traditionally worked with, and starts to pioneer, like, hey, let's take an earbud and make it out of a type of plastic that normally is not made in the factories, or let's take a laptop and let's make it out of one single sheet of aluminum, machined aluminum, instead of doing it the way they normally do it. And then that sort of trickles into the rest of the industry, and Apple will make the recipe and do it that way first, and then some other companies will do it after. But he is the real pioneer here behind this, and it's a pretty interesting read. So I recommend that you guys check it out. Wearable devices. So according to a report by The Guardian, 1/3 of the wearable devices, 1/3 of the actual Galaxy Gear smartwatches have been listed on eBay after only 6 months. And the article here talks about, why is this? What's happening? Is the wearable computing thing not really taking off? Is that not the future? What's wrong with these devices? And I thought maybe we could just go back and forth with a couple of different ideas and let you guys in the comments say what's going on with wearable devices. I do think that wearable devices are somewhat the future, even though I don't like them that much. But I think they need to get sleeker. I think the design is off. I mean, when you look at it, it's obviously they're obviously goofy compared to like a regular watch. So I think the design and the elegance need to be there. But I mean, the functionality, is it there yet? I don't know.
I think we have the hardware, but I don't think we have the software. And the software is what's going to drive innovation here. Just like the hardware existed to do all the things before the iPhone, and then the software came along, and it's like, oh, everybody needs a smartphone. For the people that are early adopters with like the Pebble, they're already enjoying a lot of really cool stuff. It's surprising that with Galaxy Gear and things like that, people are putting them down. But what I would like to see is a study where the early adopters from like Pebble and people that get it are using it, because it may be that Samsung tried to release it on the masses a little too soon, or it wasn't fully baked. The other thing is, I think the same problem that Google Glass is running into, where you've got the heads-up display and it's really good for displaying textual information and doing some basic things, but we don't have a UI paradigm, or the interface is not complicated enough. It needs to be a little more sophisticated to actually get more use out of it. Like, it's really cool, it does stuff, but until the software is smarter, until we can actually do something useful with it, it's not really all that useful.
Well, this summer, I guess Motorola is going to be releasing the Moto 360, and it's going to be the first device that features Google Wear. Google Wear is what I would be looking for, because that's like the Android version for the wearable device, or for like the smartwatch or something like that. I think that's really going to take it to the next level and allow you to do a lot of things with just a watch in your hand. Because right now you're really tethered to both, and you're still going to be tethered to both a phone and a smartwatch. But I think more people are going to start adopting it. Plus, the Moto 360 does have a more elegant look to it, so it's not such a jarring, like, oh, you're wearing one of those goofy smartwatches or whatever. They look like Fisher Price toys or something. I think they do anyway. So keep an eye on that. And
I had a flash of the future the other day, and it was your smartwatch with your heads-up display. So you got to go full tilt. You got Google Glass, and you've got whatever the modern version of Google Glass is, and you've got your smartwatch. So there's a couple of kids from MIT that are making an armband that does an accelerometer and the whole 9 yards. So it's that type of technology in a watch, and so you can move your hand around, you can do the gestures, motion control, wave your hand, whatever, and that plus your eyes, your eye movement, and things like that are the controller for your heads-up display. Then maybe, like, once you've got something that's really intuitive and easy with that, like the touch swipe iPhone interface that caused smartphones to take off or whatever, once you've got that, then this thing will really catch on and you'll have the wearable technology. But I think the wearable technology thing is going to be a 2-piece set or more.
Yeah, it doesn't quite have the secret sauce yet.
Yeah.
But once it gets that, then maybe. Amazon, they've unveiled an interesting little device called the Amazon Fire TV, and it's a tiny little box. It can run Android, so you can have tons of apps. The interesting thing here is that it will also play video games. So it's going to be sort of a console. There's going to be lots of different video games you'll be able to get. They're saying there's like probably any Android game will run on this. So you'll have to buy Amazon's $40 game controller, but I don't watch TV, so I always sound like an idiot when I talk about TV type boxes. But
this seems really high, and I was really surprised that you talked to it, because I mean, I don't know. But Amazon's also got the other thing on their new generation Kindle Fire, where you can tap the help button and then somebody can remote into your tablet to help you, which for elderly people is probably a really cool thing.
Yeah, I mean, there are just people who just really don't know how things work. Why not?
You can have that with your TV. It's like, I'm bored. Suggest me something. Here, why don't you buy this? Okay, sounds good. That could be a thing.
Yeah. I mean, the key to devices like this taking off are the partners at launch. They've got HBO Go, they've got Show Anytime, they've got Pandora, Hulu, ESPN, and Netflix are all lined up for launch. So, I don't know. Could be good. It'll be a direct competitor to the Apple TV and the Roku. So, I don't know.
I'm happy with my Xbox Media Center, or XBMC as it's now called.
Yeah, if you can do it yourself. We've got a video coming up on that in like a day.
Yeah, we're looking at all these server platforms, and it's like, what can you do with that? And we've got a video on that. So if you've seen our recent server board videos, then it's like, well, but what do I do with those? We're going to show you.
I'll give you a hint. Plex Media. Plex Media server, just Google that.
Free
or
NAS.
just wait for the videos. Yeah.
Free NAS, own cloud, Plex Media, all in one box.
This is probably something you should not do, popcorn time. Popcorn time is back on the internet.
Again, yeah. Like third time's the charm.
This is so funny. Like, okay, popcorn time, we've talked about this in the past episode. Popcorn time essentially is a Netflix, the illegal Netflix, let's call it that. Yeah, yes. That's what I'm going to call it.
But they're trying to go legit now.
are they really? I mean, they're
No.
still going to tie into no. I mean, it ties into torrents that are some legal, some not legal. And you can see here on their webpage, they're trying to make it look like they're legit by, all these movies here are, they're no longer under copyright. So they're old movies. So that's
That can be shared on torrents legally.
yeah. So now the website looks pretty legit, but no, you go on there and you search for a new movie. They're going to go and they're going to find the best copy of that movie, and it's going to start downloading. And while it's downloading, you can stream it right to your whatever device. So, yeah. Prepare the takedown notices and prepare the strikes. You guys are going to get tons of strikes from Popcorn Time. Don't even mess around with it.
Movie piracy so easy your grandma can do it.
I just realized that you were on the screen instead of the thing.
Huh? What?
No, I just pressed the wrong button.
It's I mean, your 90-year-old grandma. It's not. It comes out the Popcorn Time was actually designed by the movie studios to remove plausible deniability from 90-year-old ladies who got sued in the last round of RIAA lawsuits.
That's probably exactly what happened. Well, there's a way that we can get around all of this stuff. Well, probably not, but okay. There's a solution to YouTube and Flickr, and actually, MediaGoblin. I'm doing a terrible job at explaining things today. Have you guys heard of MediaGoblin? Let's start all the way back there. Now, MediaGoblin is an open source project that sort of decentralizes YouTube and Flickr and several other file sharing or media sharing like SoundCloud. It decentralizes them. The problem here that they're trying to solve is the fact that YouTube and all these major services have one basically central service that everyone connects to. Now, what this is going to do is it's going to take that and it's going to make a new platform for you. And it's going to be similar to almost WordPress, where you can start, set up your own platform, get your own database, and then host your own files. And they can be whatever you want, whatever media you want. If you want to have a video website like YouTube, you can spin that up and get it going. And then there's going to be some application or I guess they're designing a way for you to be able to share your media across all other MediaGoblin websites. I think it looks pretty cool. It might be fun to play with for a little bit. I'm not sure of the, I guess I'm not sure how good it would be for a commercial venture. I'm not sure if it would be good for us or not, but it might be fun to look at and play with. I like the fact that it's not, a central platform, and there's not going to be as much nonsense going on with the built-in DMCA takedown notices and that sort of thing. It'll be a different process. I mean, I'm sure you can still get in trouble if you're uploading copyrighted material, but yeah.
The interesting thing is that the machines that participate in this sort of video cloud thing, the file system is completely encrypted. And so much like Mega, where the users control the encryption keys, this is going to be the same situation. So your files are stored digitally on servers that participate in this cloud, which can be your servers or could be other people's servers. But the data itself is encrypted, and the decryption keys are controlled and owned by the users. So conceivably, you could just like Mega, you could upload whatever, but it doesn't really matter until those keys are shared. And then it's like, oh, we've got to take down this or take down that because somebody shared their keys. I mean, even Dropbox is like that. If you upload a copyrighted movie to Dropbox and it's the hash is in the blacklist or whatever, it's completely fine until you share the link. And when you share the link, it's like, oh, I checked your media and the hash matches, so you can't be sharing something that's like this. So it's a little Orwellian, but the file system on this is encrypted. And so I think that that's going to give them some resiliency, but that may also just piss off studios, and they may chip away at the safe harbor protections for this sort of encrypted, we don't know what it is situation.
Overall, I like the theme of a lot of the stuff that we're seeing. The fact that they're trying to decentralize everything and take the power out of the hands of the few and give it into the hands of the many.
And encrypt everything.
Yeah. I think that's encrypting everything and just redistributing the power so that it's not centralized is a key to keeping the web healthy. All right, Zuckerberg, Musk, and also Ashton Kutcher have invested in a company that's working on some artificial intelligence. The name of the company is Vicarious.
Vicarious.
Now, the interesting thing that this company is doing is they are working to translate the neocortex into computer code. So essentially what they're trying to do is build a computer that thinks like a person and can talk to you and offer advice and that sort of thing. And I want to point out that when Facebook was questioned about this, they said that this is something that is outside of Facebook. This is something that Zuckerberg is doing on his own. I can't help but think, Wendell, that, after they get some, artificial intelligence going, that they're going to start using it or start throwing it at some of the metadata that Facebook generates and then start using it to recommend you things. I don't know. Or maybe even converse with you on new cool things that you should be buying or spending money on. That's just me thinking out loud. But Elon Musk is also involved, and so is Ashton Kutcher. Ashton Kutcher's an interesting character, the way he kind of shows up randomly in weird places doing weird things like this.
Yeah, he is surprisingly well connected on the technology front. Who knows? Maybe he's watching now. Dun, dun, dun. I'm sure he's got better things to do than watch some obscure YouTube channel.
No, he doesn't.
It's certainly artificial intelligence like this will lead to sort of next generation personal assistants. And if you have a personal assistant who is able to talk you into doing things that you shouldn't in terms of spending money, that is going to be a road paved with solid gold bricks. Because, imagine, if I had a digital personal assistant following me around that was not directly under my control, but was something like Facebook is like, hey, this website has a really good deal on hard drives. It's like, damn it, I'm gonna have to order those. Hey, this website's having a special on video games. Oh, I gotta order those too. Stop it. So it'll be a situation like that, and that'll be bad. All right. Get me into trouble, making me order things. It knows what my weakness is. I mean, it'll get to a point where, if you really think about it, like the advertising industry was started basically by Sigmund Freud. And so that's just a way to manipulate people into buying things if you really want to take a harsh look at it. And so when you've got a personal assistant that's like in your brain doing things, it seems like it'd be really easy to manipulate people. So that's maybe a dark side of this.
Influence is bad. Education is good. Let's check out what's going on in Europe. So a few of the telecommunications companies in Europe decided they wanted to do some things like Comcast and Verizon are doing here in the USA. That's what I said was going to happen. They were going to look at these idiots, these sociopathic companies here in the USA, and they're going to say, hey, we want to do some stuff like that. So they came and they're like, hey, we want to act like Comcast, and we want to get rid of net neutrality and do all these. They made some proposals, and the European Parliament they wrote up a few papers to ensure net neutrality. You guys could check out this article, but this is a very good thing for Europe. They went to vote, and it looks like the net is going to stay neutral for now. But I'm sure there'll be a lot of back and forth, so I don't want to report on anything concrete just yet. But it looks good. Plus, I've had to read these Google translated articles. I'm going to wait for some more correctly worded articles to come out here before I say anything definitive on this.
Yeah, I would like to see an analysis, because I don't understand enough about European politics, but this is maybe a step toward a whole EU as opposed to a bunch of different countries working together for a common good, but more sort of under a general umbrella. I was more surprised that part of this is that they're doing away with cellular roaming fees. Like, you can't, when you go country to country in the EU now, I guess there are rules, or there's not really roaming in the traditional sense as there once was. And that's really good. We need that here. It's like they've looked at it and they've said, from a business case, you really can't make the case for roaming anymore. All the infrastructure is there. The billing's automatic. It's not a headache. It's just a way to gouge customers. So we're not going to let you do that anymore.
They should really start doing some stuff like the Six Strikes policy, because NBC has just declared that it was a major success, and it's going to be they're going to be ramping it up even more now, because the first year or so was basically just sort of a trial period. But now that it's in March and April, they're going to start really sending these things out. So they said it was a success, right? And they have nothing to back that up. Just
wow.
They said
so the Six Strikes thing was here in America, and it was, we send you a letter if you're pirating stuff and ask you to stop, and if you do it 6 times, we cut you off from the internet.
Yep.
And without any data at all, they say, works great, love it. Huh. That seems odd.
This is NBC saying this. I mean, this is not one of the ISPs saying it. It's NBC. And really, I think NBC is just seeing no one download their shows because nobody wants to watch that crap. So maybe that's it. They're like, hey, look, no one's downloading our shows. No one wants to watch that junk. Everybody's busy downloading HBO and AMC and all that stuff. Yeah. Anyway, so just use a VPN. That's I've been saying that a million times. Just use a VPN to keep yourself safe on the internet, so you don't have to worry about the strikes and all that garbage. Because the other thing that they did not release any statistics on, they did not release any statistics on false positives. How many people have received a strike when they were actually downloading something legit? What if they went to what if they were downloading a torrent for I don't know, Linux, a Linux distro or something, and they're like, that looks like send them a strike. There's no stats like. Show us why it's good. I mean, it's not NBC that's going to do that. It's going to be the ISPs that have to do that sort of thing. But yeah, if it's going to be a good thing, prove it.
The other thing you can do is not depend on American media swill.
Yeah. There's a lot of stuff you can be watching other than that. Apple and Samsung again.
They're at it again. There's a whole, it's like God. Patent lawsuit round 2. Apple is currently up $1 billion still.
Well, they're asking for several billion more dollars. And, they're citing a lot of the same things, a lot of the things that are uber basic, like the layout of like the screen. They're citing like they're talking about the slide to unlock thing again. They're talking about so many basic things. I mean, if you... God,
I was really surprised at how a lot of the stuff that was in there. I really was, because, I mean, it's just not... I don't understand how Motorola patents, which are standards essential, are only worth $3 million. And these, which is just utter BS, are worth $1 billion. I mean, it's like, you can't have a phone without a radio. Well, that's only worth $1 million. You can have a phone without a slide to unlock screen, but we want to own that. That's worth $1 billion? It doesn't make sense.
So here's the crazy part. They're asking for $40 per Samsung phone, but a lot of the stuff that they're fighting about in this patent war is really not about so much the design, but before they talked about the shape, the corners, they were mad that Samsung had, rounded edges on a rectangle. They thought that they owned rectangles with rounded edges. And this time they're really fighting about stuff that is part of the Android operating system. And I don't think that Apple really is after Samsung. Of course, they would love to have $40 per Samsung phone sold, but I think this is a little bit bigger. And they have not directly started a fight with Google. Google's been pretty cool as far as the patent wars go. They've kind of stayed out of it. They haven't really attacked anybody else. Apple has been attacking everyone else, but they have not directly attacked Google. And I think this may be a way to attack the Android operating system itself without actually taking Google to court, because the implications of what's happening in this lawsuit, if they get their way, it's going to mean that a lot of things that Google owns patents to are also infringing, and a lot of things that are core elements of the Android operating system are also infringing. So that's what I think they're trying to do here. They're trying to use this as a basis to stop Android, which is kind of scary.
Yeah, this is really bad implications for Google. One of the patents was parsing the page and looking for a number and words like tomorrow and making it a link to click to do stuff on. But I mean, that technology has existed since Skype. I mean, Skype has a browser plugin that they install so they can track everything. And they have since time immemorial. And that makes phone numbers on web pages clickable. That's been there since the beginning, since before iPhone was even a thing. And I don't understand why it's like, oh, we're going to do that on a mobile platform. It's like, well, but it's always been there in Skype, and there's just mobile versus desktop. I mean, come on, guys.
Well, yeah, I don't know where this is going to go. I mean, if the jury and the judge has any sense about them, they're going to throw this junk out, and it's bad for innovation. It's bad for the world. Apple tried this crap way back in the day with Windows, and because they were saying like, oh, Windows, it looks too much like us or whatever, but no.
Yeah, in the 80s, it was totally like Xerox came up with all this stuff, which is a really fun story for another time. And so Apple came out with stuff, and then Microsoft came out with stuff, and Apple was like, wait, you ripped us off. And Microsoft was like, well, actually, we both ripped off Xerox. And Xerox was like, hey, wait a minute.
All right, well, that's it for this episode. We will see you guys in the next episode, which will be hardware and science. And there's quite a bit of interesting things to talk about in the gaming world as well. But yeah, we'll just see you guys over there. Links on the screen. Thank you guys very much for being cool. And bye. Yeah.